This is the first former member of China's secret police to speak publicly about Beijing's active campaign to silence Chinese pro-democracy voices overseas. Calling himself Eric, he was an agent for China's Ministry of Public Security, or First Bureau, from 2008 until last year, when he defected to Australia.
My job was to collect the intelligence about the country I was in and the anti-communist groups there. I was supposed to infiltrate these groups, make friends, and trap targets for return to China.
Eric was coerced into becoming an agent in 2008 after his arrest for supporting a pro-democracy party and given a choice: help the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, catch dissidents abroad or go to jail. He chose the former, taking on fake identities such as a property executive and an anti-communist freedom fighter to lure dissidents to countries where they could be abducted and returned to China. But because he secretly protected targets and says no one was arrested because of his work, he was concerned his handlers would become suspicious, and he decided to defect.
I didn't want to be responsible for any targets being returned to China. And I tried to make sure that it did not happen. And this made my bosses suspicious of me.
Eric's testimony confirms our reporting and the reports of others that a Chinese government spy network is threatening, entrapping, and even kidnapping critics of the Chinese Communist government.
These are kind of the methods being used by the CCP. Again, this is not an allegation we're making. This is what their official documents state.
Laura Harth, who tracks Chinese transnational repression for the human rights group Safeguard Defenders, says we can assume there are agents like Eric operating in the U.S. But these CCP agents are only part of a larger campaign by the Chinese government called the United Front.
So the United Front is something that's being defined by the Chinese Communist Party as one of its secret or magic weapons. And essentially its task is two things. On the one hand, expand the so-called circle of friends of the Chinese Communist Party. So co-opting or influencing politicians, media, academia, entrepreneurs. But on the other hand, and this is something that is often overlooked when we talk about United Front, its task is also to crack down on critics, right? To silence them, to divide them.
An Amnesty International survey of Chinese students in 24 universities in Europe and North America found that many live in fear of surveillance, harassment, or intimidation by Chinese agents. It's unclear how many of the so-called Chinese police stations used to control dissidents are still operating in the U.S. On paper, it might be less than 5. The one above a noodle shop in New York we showed you last year was finally shut down by authorities.
Police stations, or so-called police stations, is really the tip of the iceberg. We need to take a broad view and understand what the wider picture looks like and the amount of proxies and networks that the Chinese Party state is operating.
Bob Fu, the founder and president of the Texas-based ministry China Aid, helped lead the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest as a student. He still faces harassment by Chinese agents 35 years later.
Recent few months, even, I had been harassed and receiving threats with text messages, and also CCP agents booked hotels under my name and then called the police from New York to Los Angeles, from Washington, D.C. to Houston, basically for bomb threats. Said Bob Fu was about to set off bombs.
Pro-democracy activist Li Jianji in Los Angeles, who Chinese agents have tried to kill 3 times, told us Chinese Americans are still surrounded by constant threat of danger. In a special message to his former colleagues still trying to harass and trap Chinese dissidents, Eric encouraged them to recognize the nature of the Communist Party, that it's a fascist, totalitarian party, and that carrying out these illegal and secret activities in various countries is not good for them. And he challenges them to instead do something good for human civilization. Beijing's continued repression of overseas Chinese begs the question: if those Chinese who fled communism for freedom still live in fear of the Chinese Communist Party, are they really free? Dale Hurd, CBN News.